Andy, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, if we can, if you can just give me a brief breakdown of your military background, starting when you came here to the United States, and then just kind of break it down for the audience what your resume is coming to the current.
So my parents ran from socialism. I was a kid. I was in ninth grade. Arrived here in Arizona. Went through a whole process different than what's today. Upon arrival, went to Maryville High, graduated. But being of European mindset, you had to go to college. So how you pay for it? Because here you pay for it. In Europe, it's free. So I have no money. So they said, well, no, you join the service. All right. So I was going to join the Air Force. However, the only person that was there, the only recruiter that was present was the Marine. So Marine was. So I signed up for the Marine Corps, did 6 years there. Then I switched branches to the Army. I was an infantryman, so I did Panama, Desert Storm, Somalia, Haiti, Bosnia. Then, of course, the rest of it after 9/11. Yeah, it goes along with deployments. And I retired after 22 years in the service. So I got a chance to see the world. I've been stationed places like Okinawa, Japan, or did missions in Philippines and joint operations with the host countries in Philippines, in Thailand, in Korea. So got a chance to see the world, got a chance to experience how other people live and do things. And I do appreciate the fact that I really thought at that time that we have the best led military in the world. And that's what I thought. And then things, as I started getting older and deploying to certain places, I got a chance to put my knowledge of what I knew of the world, kind of like, this doesn't pass the common sense test. And I think the wake-up call for me was Bosnia. Being born in that region, I was intimately familiar with the regional history, with ethnicity, the ethnical frictions between people. And when we got there, I tried to explain to commanders, hey, listen, these people are not native to the land. They're leftover Turkish occupation. So, I tried to explain that the leader they had before, Joseph Broz Tito, allowed these people to practice their religion. He just had two things. One, you cannot have a speaker. You cannot dress in traditional Islamic garb. You have to dress like everybody else does, and you're good. Well, when he passed away, nobody was strong enough to keep the country together. It fell apart. And then, of course, what happened, we have, I call it the root of all evil. Saudi Arabia sent a bunch of imams to radicalize these people, and that's where it all started from. So, for people that don't know, Bosnia was the birthplace of Al-Qaeda. Osama bin Laden fought there. Saudi Arabia paid off a lot of fighters from Afghanistan to come and fight there.
We were always told that Al-Qaeda came out of the first Gulf War because bin Laden wanted to be the one to defend the kingdom.
Right.
And instead they called on the United States. So Bosnia being after that. So where did bin Laden come into play in terms of the first Gulf War and Bosnia?
I think bin Laden, during that time, he was still playing his royal oats in Beirut, having a good time. He was just learning to, I think in Beirut and in Palestine, he was radicalized, I think, there when he saw the struggle of the Muslim population. But in Bosnia, I saw the fact that he could fight, and his leadership skills came out. And not just leadership skills, but he had money. He comes from a very wealthy family, so he brought a lot of money. Money buys the influence in the Middle East. Money talks. And that's how he was able to get all those things accomplished. And like I said, he actually founded Al-Qaeda in Bosnia, and he fought there. And if we would have let the Serbs and the Russians do what they did, maybe 9/11 would never happen. We can play maybes all day long, but I really do think that we were on the wrong side. When I went there, saw these videos that you saw online about the concentration camps. I didn't see one. And when we did find the locals who we saw on TV, they said they were paid by the British media, and they just zoomed in on a barbed wire, and he was behind it. But when you zoomed out, you could walk around the fence. There was nothing there.
So who are the main players in Bosnia? As far as so the conflict was between who specifically?
So it was between the Bosnian Serbs? And the Bosnian Muslims.
Okay.
So obviously the Bosnian Serbs were predominant, having the speakers and dressing in certain ways. These guys told them, hey, no. Just like there was before. We just want people. You can go have your Ramadan and do your thing, no problem. But, you need to make sure that you belong. You look like everybody else. Okay. And that wasn't it. They refused to do that.
So was it Muslims pushing Serbs out?
Both.
Oh, okay.
Both. Everybody was trying to curve out their little enclave.
Okay.
And that's where the fight started. Because the Serbs told them, you know what, if you keep doing this, you're done. And they said, I don't care. I was like, okay, then we're going to wipe you out. And that's how it started.
Who's in control of Bosnia?
So now Bosnia is split in two, and they had two identical governments. And I think lately they probably share who's in charge based on for 2 years these guys are in charge, for 2 years those are in charge, but they have separate enclaves. They're still a country, but separated,
Okay.
by ethnic lines, literally.
I want to talk about Mogadishu. I want to talk about Somalia.
Okay.
Okay. So that was in 93?
92, 93.
92, 93.
So what happened there is Said Barre was their dictator, and Muhammad Faradi was one of the more powerful clan leaders that started the revolution against it. But he wasn't strong enough to become president. So now the city was torn between two fractions, Muhammad Faradi and Mahdi. Mahdi was pro-American. He wanted elections. He said, let's do elections. Whoever wins, wins. Muhammad Faradi wanted to be president by de facto because he started this revolution. So he used food as his weapon. And he starved the population in order to maintain power. So we went in to open up the lines to feed the people. And that's what we did. We opened up the lines. Muhammad Faradi tried a couple of times. His boys came out with technicals. They got destroyed very quickly by a couple of Cobras. And every time he tried to act up, the Marine commander at the time was General Wilhelm. He would send a couple of Harriers fly over his homes that we knew where they are at, do a couple of low passes, and he learned that, we know where you're at, you need to pipe down. And everything was peaceful. Everything was good. And then leadership changed in Washington, and all of a sudden, all the contingent was pulled out. So all the UN forces, like Pakistanis, Kuwaitis, Saudis, they were useless, stayed. But all the real fighters, which was us, everybody else, we gave the Italians Mahdi's side, which is the peaceful side. And their patrol was, at 7 o'clock in the morning in Fiat APCs. Like, that's not patrolling. Patrolling is getting out and walking, talking to people, see what's going on. They didn't care. It's just the way it was. So once we left, a small task force was left behind at the stadium where the Pakistanis took over from us. 10th Mountain came in, I think it was 214, and then some Marines were left over to help out because we patrolled those streets every day. I would leave at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I would come back in the evening. And sometimes even evening I would go out if there was a mission or something. So I knew that those streets inside and out. So when the Rangers came in, because once we left, all the technicals, all these guys who were hiding came out of the woodwork, and they took over the streets. So when the Rangers went out on the streets, tried to check out things, these guys would get chased by the technicals. So in order to avoid any kind of conflict or casualties, the Rangers were kept at the airport. So they did not have any firsthand knowledge of the place except from air, because they would patrol it from air, and they would see it. So when they went in, that was their biggest problem, is that they did not have firsthand intelligence. From the air, it looks one way. When down the street, it looks completely different. So I think that's where the mistake was. And these guys, you have to remember, if you go into Bukhara market, and the Marines, we raided that market 3 times and put 20, 30, 5 tons full of weapons. So this is their market. This is where they trade weapons. It's not going to go away. And if you're going to go in there, and this is also ID territory. So you do not mess with his territory, or you don't do anything without him knowing. So I think that's where the shortcoming was, is when the helicopters got shot down, they did not anticipate it. And then when they did ask for help, getting the Pakistanis organized, good luck with that one. This is like herding cats. That's the reason why it took so long, because they didn't want to come out initially. 10 Mountain said, well, we don't know the streets that well. Okay, can we get some of the Marines to go along and help out and show us? So that's what we did. We went out and helped out, tell them go left, go right, go straight, and collect some of the casualties that they had out there. So collect some of the Rangers that were lost. But that was their biggest problem, is that they did not have firsthand intel. But, why didn't they go after ID directly? Because it didn't help us. Also, what's interesting is the person who took over for ID is his son. His son was in the U.S. Guess what he was? He was a Marine reservist. He was a U.S. Marine reservist.
Wow.
And he ended up going to Somalia, and he's the one who took over for him when he passed away. So right now, the Habir Gadir tribe is being led by Muhammad Farah al-Assad, who is a former U.S. Marine, technically.
Wow. In the movie, they arrest
his financial advisor.
Is that who it is?
Yeah. It was. They thought if they capture his guy who finances him, it's going to be, Muhammad Farah is going to give up. And no, Muhammad Farah, once the fight was over, the Africa commander his name was General Hoar, H-O-A-R. He went to see Muhammad Farah and told him, you got exactly 4 hours till the Marine mule that's on ship's turns around gets here. I'm going to unload them all, and I'm going to level this place. And, I don't know, 45 an hour later, they coughed up Durant. So, they knew they lost the battle. I mean, they killed a lot of people. They knew they lost the battle. There was no partying when we got there. But they're also, in our case, we won the battle and then we got pulled out.
Yeah.
And this happened over and over and over again in our history. Because if you look back, the last time we won a battle was World War II, as in we won a war, so to speak. Korea was even Steven. Vietnam, we lost. No, we won every battle, but we lost because, again, who was the culprit in there? The media.
Right.
Kicked us in the butt.
Yeah.
So, when you go to other ones, small, like Granillo was in and out. That was not even Panama was in and out. It was not one of those long. But when you go to Desert Storm, for example, we went there, and when we got to Kuwait City to liberate it, we had to stop and let the coalition forces, i.e. the Saudis and the Kuwaitis, go and liberate it, even though there's no more fighting. We took care of everybody. But it looks nicer that way. We give them the glory. And I'm like, really? We did all the fighting. These guys were behind, in the rear with the gear, but we had to let them go through and do their thing.
I remember that around that time. Going back to Somalia, so the operational mistake was not on the ground intel.
No. I think the White House wanted a quick solution, and the Rangers could not provide it. And I think that the situation was delicate on ground because they were not allowed to go outside, get firsthand knowledge. And, in the movie, I love when they show the SF guy out, and I saw parts. I didn't watch the whole movie. So they show the SF guy out in town. Unless the SF guy was black, they would have known from a mile away that this is SF and he doesn't belong there.
Right.
So that to me was a little far-fetched.
Yeah.
It was good. It looked good in the movie. And the reason why I couldn't watch the movie, they filmed it in Morocco, doesn't look like Mogadishu at all.
Okay.
So that kind of, it lost its luster. The equipment was good. The same, obviously the Rangers helped out and the tactics and everything, as I'm sure, was on par with what happened there. But the fact that the location wasn't the same, I'm like,
And was Delta really out there?
Yeah, they were there. Delta's always everywhere. They're the ones who lead. And any kind of surgical operation, they're the ones who do it. Do you know who these guys are? No, it looks like average Joe. It looks like any other soldier, on the ground. But they're professionals, and the reason why they're chosen to be there. Before, the way they used to channel the SF was, and this is before, obviously this is Somalia. That's the reason why those guys were so good, in my humble opinion, is that so all the small units like 1st ID, 10 Mountain, 82nd and 101st, they would challenge to the Ranger Battalion. Then from the Ranger Battalion, you got by invitation, you go up to try out the Q course, and then you become SF. So it was like, a pyramid. Iraq War and Afghanistan, they changed it because they had a huge need for SF. And a lot of SF left because all the companies were hiring them for much better pay.
That's right.
So they all left. And now they came to the Ranger Battalion and say, hey, we need bodies. So I can't give you all the bodies. I'm like, so now they started recruiting from outside the realm. So I don't think the quality was as good, I think. So right now, if last time I checked, and you have to remember I've been retired for a while, but last time I checked, there were like 28,000 special forces, and there are still only 3 Ranger battalions. The rest of them are training. But so it's short. So now I think that the Rangers are the tip of the spear, and SF is just everywhere kind of thing. Not to diminish what they do, is they do a lot of good work. But once they start these ODAs, especially in Iraq, so operational detachments, they use them for everything, and they were everywhere. And I understand why the need was there. I'm not sure if the training was there, and because I know, for example, in no matter where you went, the SF and the Rangers had their own compound. But within that compound, they were separated from each other because obviously the Rangers are young bucks, while the SF tend to be seasoned staff sergeant or above, seasoned warriors. They usually are, long hair, no helmet, no discipline kind of thing, because because of what they do. While the Rangers are very straightforward, very by the book, and I think that's what separates the two. And the leadership doesn't want them to learn from the nasty SF4 special forces. Like, no, You're not going to wear your hat like that. You're not going to do that. You're not going to do this.
Right.
SF has their own thing. Rangers have their own thing. So they had to be separated. And I understood that. That's normal.
How long was the battle in Somalia? How long was that battle?
So the battle lasted a lot longer than what they portrayed. In the movie, you can only have so long.
Sure.
So you have to remember, these guys were lost. So they the battle lasted as long as, about a day and a half, 2 days. But you had also skirmishes because you had to recover these guys because they were lost. So you had to go in there and get them out. So it lasted a little longer than that.
Who took the blame for the debacle?
Nobody.
Really?
Nobody, yeah.
I mean, no one ended up
No,
retiring
so
over
nobody,
it?
as far as I know, nobody ended up retiring because of it. I mean, there was not anybody's fault. If anybody should have retired, should have been in Washington. That's one of the things I disagree with. You get orders from Washington, 10,000 miles away. So from rules of engagement, that's one of the things that they come out with. And you look at them like, who came up with this? What brainchild, and you and more than likely came from the White House, and somebody thought that this is a good thing. Somebody who has never been to war, more than likely. Somebody who has never seen battle, maybe saw a couple of movies, and then he thought, no, this sounds like a good idea. We'll do it this way because it passes the Geneva Convention. Well, last time I checked, Geneva Convention, one of the lines in it says, uniform opposing force. This is not a uniform opposing force. Now, and I'm not saying that you don't have to be humane and everything else, but no, look at World War II. How many people died? 66 million. How many of those were soldiers? 26. So that means that 40 million were civilians. So
you would think the Joint Chiefs would speak up. Obviously, they have experience, or at least they're in the field.
they are supposed to.
Yeah, and the fact that they're there, but it seems like from what we're talking about now, and we'll talk about Afghanistan, it almost seems like they're there to echo whatever the State Department or the powers that be, the establishment wants, and they're not there to really give solid military advice.
It is. We used to joke in the military that the last real rank is a colonel. Once you become a general, which is a congressional approval, you become a politician.
How long were you in Iraq?
So I went there in 2004 and came home in 2006 January. So that year was completely gone for me. I was up in Mosul. It was a good experience kind of thing. I got a chance to meet a lot of people, work with coalition forces. But what I realized is that you get so many missions and nobody keeps track of the fact that you don't have the manpower. It's like they want you to do all these things. They're like, you do know that this is how many people I have. And if I divide it up in that, then we never sleep.
Right.
So how are we gonna? And for example, with the guys that I end up working with, the Albanians, nobody wanted to work with them, and I understood why. When you went to their compound, it said the 5th Albanian Commando Company. It sounded very macho. They're a bunch of yahoos. But it was a body with an AK. I needed that, so we tried to train them, and they were okay. There was another body to shoot. The closest I came to being shot was by them, not by the enemy.
Oh, wow.
So we tried to stack one time to go into a house, and the guy put his barrel into my thigh, and I pushed it to the side. I put 2 rounds next to my foot. So stuff like that. You're like, my God. It is what it is. Then one time we saw a house. I said, Lieutenant, we need to check. This is a Albanian lieutenant. I said, listen, we need to pull a perimeter, and we need to check out that house over there. Okay. As soon as I park, he jumps out of the vehicle, kicks the door in, and he goes, clears the house by himself. Comes back and said, Sergeant, all good. I'm like, Lieutenant, remember the training we did with the house, the stacking? Oh, yeah. I said, let's put that aside. I said, first of all, you're not wearing your helmet. That would be my one thing. It's for you, not for me. And 2, what if you kicked in and that door was booby-trapped? He's like, oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. I'm like, I know. So next time, don't be so eager. Take your time. But when it comes to stuff like this, and we know the government does things that Agent Orange was a perfect example, that later on comes back and bites us. There's a reason why I have a shirt that I wear to the VA when I go. It's got a skull on it. It says, the VA, giving a veteran a second opportunity to die for his country.